I think everyone has to say, got it? All right. Welcome to Author Nation and welcome to the workshop, Strong Mindset for PR Success. Just before we start, I have a poll for everyone. I really want to know where you are on this poll. So how PR savvy are you? 1, I love it, I'm a pro. 2, I've done some PR, but I need help. 3, I've thought about it, but don't do any. And 4, this is a PR workshop. Excuse me while I run away. Wait, okay. Somebody's terrified of PR. Anybody? One more. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we have someone who loves it. A couple of people who've done some but need help. And we have someone this is like a really, really scary thought. So thank you so much for everyone. There, I'm sharing the results for you so you can see what they are, our anonymous survey. I love it that you're either trying it or not. There's nobody who's like thought about it, but hasn't tried it yet. So to the person who's terrified of PR, welcome, and you're in the right place. All right. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Lilian. Lilian is a longtime PR coach and publicist who focuses on helping authors fulfill their potential to become global industry leaders by focusing on how to build a healthy PR mindset above any strategy. It's something that she's passionate about because as she has seen the positive impacts of this, what a good mindset has been able to do for her clients through her work and her coaching. She became a PR coach to go beyond the usual work as publicist, and she wanted to empower entrepreneurs and authors and not just focus on press results. So through her strategic coaching program, coaching intensives, and brand new self-paced hybrid PR course, she empowers authors to gain confidence to learn how to develop their own successful PR campaigns, coaching them how to develop strong, healthy PR mindsets. Pardon me, COVID brain, I'm going to say, coaching them on how to develop strong and healthy PR mindsets, and busting down fear and imposter syndrome, and how to use the right tools, the right knowledge and resources to fulfill their goals and see them reach their fullest potential, having the confidence to conquer interviews and grow. And that is why she does what she does, and that is why she is here today. Please welcome Lilian Sue. I love to welcome people like this, or you can clap. Thank you. Lilian Sue, away.
Thank you for having me, Melody. Happy to be here. Great to see everybody who's come to this. For today, as we're talking about PR, PR is to successfully build a strategy. PR can encompass many things, but at its core, it's really about being authentic, sharing authentic stories, and learning how to build positive, authentic relationships. And one of the biggest components to do that and to do that successfully is about learning how to build a healthy PR mindset. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to share my screen here and get the presentation portion started. Can everybody see this screen okay? All right. Okay, so what is mindset exactly, and why is it so vital to PR success? Well, mindset is the established set of attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs that you have about yourself as an author and your books. It's powerful because it can influence your subconscious thoughts, the decisions you make, and the actions that you choose to take. So, why is it crucial to PR? Well, your mindset and your subconscious beliefs can influence how you show up to your audiences on social media, through email, wherever it is that you're talking to them. It can influence the energy that you share with that audience. It can influence the strategy that you build, if you build one. and it has both the power to push you forward in building that strategy as well as holding you back when it comes to building an effective strategy. So for today, what we're going to sort of dive into is some of the negative mindsets that can influence whether or not you build a PR strategy, the types of PR myths out there that can help reinforce a negative mindset. And then we're going to get into a little bit of how to build healthy coping mechanisms to push past these negative and limiting beliefs in order to learn how to build a successful PR strategy. So that's a little bit of table of contents for you on what we're focusing on today, and wanted to dive into some of the negative emotions that can be influencing you as an author and how you show up and whether you show up when it comes to marketing. Imposter syndrome is a really, really big one that affects all kinds of authors, whether you are a fiction author or a nonfiction author. And basically, at its heart, what it comes down to is if you're feeling imposter syndrome, you feel like a fraud. You feel like all of your success can be attributed to being lucky, not because you have the right strategy or because you've worked hard. And as a result of that, you can push yourself to do certain things. So things like setting incredibly high goals for your books when it comes to marketing. Like, okay, for this month, I'm going to sell 500 books simply by doing advertising and email marketing. And then you set yourself up for disappointment when you don't achieve it. You push yourself towards burnout by working towards trying to achieve such high goals. And on top of that, you don't ask for help because you feel like it's going to validate to people that you are a fraud and you don't believe in your own strategy. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, this could impact your strategy in a lot of ways. Maybe you don't build a strategy. Maybe you set your goals so high that you can't achieve these in your strategy, and you also believe that you're not worthy of getting those 5-star reviews. You're not worthy of getting those interviews. You're not worthy of getting out there and positioning yourself as a global industry leader and an author who knows what they're talking about when it comes to the topics of your books. So that's a way that imposter syndrome can affect how you build a strategy or if you build one. Beyond that, there's self-doubt. A big one that I see with a lot of the authors that I work with and I speak to on the regular is self-doubt in the form that comes in like jealousy. It's a great form of self-doubt because they see another author who is writing in the same genre as they are, and that author is achieving those interviews. They're meeting those milestones of raising brand awareness and getting in front of other readers by getting on podcasts, by having reviews done. And they start to doubt that what they're doing is actually working. They start to doubt whether or not they can meet their goals. And they start to believe that maybe I don't know what I'm doing. It's reinforcing that fraud mindset from imposter syndrome. It's trying to reinforce the fact that maybe I don't know what my goals are. And some of this self-doubt can cause authors to fixate on what's worked for other creative entrepreneurs rather than building the strategy that works for them, but rather than spending that time and that energy to build a strategy that works for them. Hand in hand with self-doubt is self-sabotage. When you feel like a fraud, when you're doubting whether or not your strategy is going to meet your goals and you're actually doing things the right way, self-sabotage can happen. Maybe you start getting those interview opportunities, but you go, no, you know what? I'm not comfortable. I don't know how to conduct myself in an interview. I'm not comfortable answering questions. I don't deserve these opportunities, and my books don't deserve to be promoted because people are going to find out I don't know what I'm doing and I'm a fraud. So these are sort of the three types of negative emotions that can really feed into your mindset and affect how you build a PR strategy, whether you build a PR strategy, and also whether or not you abandon a strategy because it feeds into the unrealistic expectations you have based on the fact that you feel like a fraud and you feel like you have to prove yourself. So going hand in hand with that, when you have these types of mindset issues, these negative emotions, these negative mindsets, how can PR myths play a part into reinforcing that toxic mindset or turning that mindset toxic? There's some really popular PR myths out there, and I'm only going to touch upon a few of them that will help reinforce these types of negative and limiting beliefs about your books and about yourself as an author. Here's a big one. I speak with and work with a lot of authors who believe that they don't qualify for PR. They don't qualify for a list of criteria to be successful at PR because they believe they don't have the large audience or the name recognition to pull off a successful PR campaign. And they believe this because of the fact that they're filled with self-doubt, because they're already self-sabotaging their own efforts before they even do any media outreach, and because they believe that they're not worthy of that coverage. So that's a really popular myth that I know a lot of authors believe. And I'm here to tell you right now that that myth is false. Anyone can launch a successful PR campaign. There is not a predetermined set list of criteria that you need in order to launch a successful PR campaign. But what you need is to be able to believe in yourself and believe in your author's journey and how you've positioned your books. So that's one that I wanted to focus on. Here's a few other PR myths that are really, really popular amongst the authors that I speak to and I work with. They believe that bigger is always better, that only mainstream media matters, and they believe in this because they think that's the best way to push themselves. That is the best way to prove that they are an author that has the chops to launch their own PR strategy. Here's the thing about mainstream media that I'd like to clear up for everyone, and that is, although they have audiences that number in the hundreds of thousands, not everyone in that audience is going to be your ideal audience or your ideal reader. It's a much more effective strategy to position your book and target your book to where your readers are spending their time. So that is, it's much better to say, go for an author-related podcast or an entrepreneurship-related podcast or a podcast that focuses on relationship issues than it is to try and pitch a national talk show. Because their audiences are generalized, not specific, and their viewers, their readers, their listeners are looking for something different that may not fit with what it is that you're trying to pitch. Another really big myth: any publicity is good publicity. I heard this myth long before I even started working in PR. It's been prevalent for decades now, and it's people that tend to believe that as long as people are talking about me, then that means I'm succeeding. But the fact is that in today's internet age, all of the comments that you've made before, maybe negative incidences that you've been involved with that have been documented on social media, all of these things can come back and negatively harm your reputation when you're trying to build what is essentially an engagement strategy to get you in front of the right audiences and help you build positive relationships with the media. And this last one here is another really good one that I've encountered dealing with authors, working with authors and creative entrepreneurs all the time. They buy into the fact that you can only find PR success if you're spending $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 to really saturate the market and go after major mainstream publications, TV, radio, all of these sorts of things, and go international. When the fact is that PR can be and has been successful for authors who understand a few things. Number one, they know what their goals are. Number two, they believe in themselves and their author journeys and the stories that they're sharing through their books. And number three, they learn how to position themselves properly. And that does not have to take $20,000 for you to learn how to do. It's really about spending that time to get introspective, to brainstorm what your limiting beliefs are around PR. What is it about it that scares you? Why do you believe PR is only for people that have name recognition? Do you believe that because that's the only PR success stories that you've seen? You know, why do you believe that big budgets are necessary? PR success comes down to also an education piece. That can also really affect your budget. Are you looking to get educated and empowered to learn how to make PR work for you with personalized support? Are you looking to do some self-directed learning that will give you the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right platforms to move ahead? Or are you perhaps looking for some expert guidance that will help you launch a PR campaign so you can see how a PR expert runs through a campaign and you learn by following by example? All of these things can affect your budget, and it doesn't take $20,000 for you to do. You don't have to be an entrepreneur or own a company with a big budget. All of these things can help reinforce a mindset that's already negative. Reinforce the imposter syndrome that you're feeling. Reinforce that self-doubt. Push you to do more self-sabotage because you feel like you don't qualify. So, in speaking about that, let's talk a little bit about how to build healthy coping mechanisms to help you push past that. Step number one to developing healthy coping mechanisms to push past your imposter syndrome, your self-doubt, your self-sabotage, fear, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, all of these feelings, is to really recognize what triggers them. So think about how you feel when you see other authors get the results that you want. what's driving that jealousy? What's driving that self-doubt? What's driving sort of that stress and feeling of being overwhelmed when you see someone else get the results that you want? Is it because you think you're falling behind? Why do you think you're falling behind? Who is building this arbitrary timeline for you or schedule for you that you feel like you have to stick to? When it comes to trying to figure out your marketing strategy, and you're attending webinars like this, you're reading books, you're looking at blog posts, maybe you're watching YouTube videos, you have all this information that you're trying to absorb, but at the same time you don't feel like you're really understanding it. There's all this great information out there, but you're not really understanding, how can I apply that to me and my books and what it is that I'm trying to do? Why do you avoid asking for help? What's driving that avoidance? Is it pride? Is it fear of thinking that people are going to see you as a fraud? Is it just concern over how much time you're going to have to spend figuring out what works for you versus what's working for everyone else? So the first step to learning how to build healthy coping mechanisms to push past these limiting beliefs is really giving yourself that time and that space to kind of sit with it and get introspective and figure out, like, okay, when I see someone else get this success, when I see someone else get a podcast interview that I really want to get, how do I feel about that? What's triggering me here? Why am I feeling jealousy? Why am I doubting my own strategy? Why do I feel lost? Am I angry at someone else's success? So that's the first step to really learning how to build healthy coping mechanisms. One of the other things that I talk to with my clients about a lot when we work on mindset is always to build mantras. And one of the big mantras that I always focus on is, my strategy exists to help me achieve my goals, not someone else's. The fact that someone else has achieved their goals is great. I can see that it can be done, but that's not my strategy. My commitment to myself and my books is to build the strategy that works for me and my goals. So to get yourself out of that jealousy spiral, to get yourself out of that self-doubt spiral, remind yourself that what my goals are. These are my goals for my books. And my strategy is designed to help me reach those goals. If you're feeling overwhelmed about launching a PR campaign, about having to put all these different pieces in place in order to have it launch the right way, I say to authors, take it one step at a time, one building block at a time. So what that means is you can break your strategy down to bite-sized chunks. You don't have to figure out your goals plus work on a media kit plus work on a media list all in the same day. You can spend maybe an hour that day, maybe half an hour if that's all you have, brainstorming what your goals are, and yet you're still moving forward. The key that I always tell authors is, take the time because you have the time. No one is rushing you here. No one is building an arbitrary schedule that you absolutely have to follow. And lastly, when it comes to asking for help and feeling overwhelmed because there's so many strategies out there, there's so many ideas, and you see so many examples of what other people are doing, asking for help will bring you clarity and confidence to learn how to build the right strategy that will help you achieve your goals and that is tailored to your author's journey and your books. It will bring you clarity. It will clarify where and how you should start building a strategy if you don't have experience. And it will help you build the proper frameworks to continue moving forward. The more books you have in the future and the more opportunities you have, whether it is you want to present your own workshops just like this, you want to book more conferences, you want to do outreach to more industry associations around the themes of your book in order to reach the right audiences. So these are just some of the main mantras that I give authors all the time on a weekly basis to remind them that building a PR strategy is about taking the time and being able to take it one step at a time in order to give yourself that space to really develop that proper mindset, to develop the goals, and to go through the process of working through each building block one at a time. So here are just some of the resources you have. Melody has already provided you the link for my PR Mindset Journal that was a part of this presentation. You can always sign up for a discovery call with me. Follow me on social media at Lilian Sue, Copywriter PR, or book a strategic coaching call if you have specific questions surrounding goal planning, surrounding building proper story pitches, or surrounding your media kits or media list that you need some clarification on. I'm going to stop screen sharing now and give you all an opportunity to ask any questions you might have.
Thank you, Lilian. You can either just put up your hand if you have a question and I will come to you, or you can drop it in the chat and I will say it out loud for everyone, entirely up to you. But just before we start that, the first thing I want to say is, and you can pop this in the chat or just put up your hand. So we talked a lot about the obstacles, the myths. Does anyone have anything else in their mind right now that says, I can't do PR because? If you do, jot it in the chat. Just put up your hand. Let's talk about that. Let's deal with anything else. Kenny, you're on mute, my friend, so you'll have to unmute.
Okay. I have loads of confidence, but no education. I literally don't know what to do. In my previous lifetime, someone taught me and I got good at it. In this lifetime, nobody's taught me anything yet. And I was kind of hoping I'd learn something today about what do you do? What's a strategy? What's the goal of it all? Sort of like the mechanics of it.
Sure. Well, we focused on mindset because it is the first cornerstone of really kind of digging down to how you feel about certain things. Then what also goes hand in hand with that is goal planning. So what are your goals for your books? Really kind of writing that down so you have that in front of you. That's the first part of your strategy. After that, it's about positioning. And positioning is another really big cornerstone that I talk to authors about all the time, because what you do as an author is not unique. There are thousands of people that write in your genre, but what's going to make you stand out is why you started doing it and how you do it. And a lot of authors I have talked to and I've worked with have a block around that because they always believe that they want their books to speak for themselves, right? They're not comfortable getting into a conversation about why they're an author. But if you want to take that step into PR, that's part of That's part of building that strategy, because people want to learn more about your author's journey. They want to learn more about the person behind that. So once you have those pieces in place, then it's about building the media products. What are the media products? It's the things that you will either send to the media or the things that you will use to contact the media. So your media kit is a big one as an author. That is your promotional package. So it's got to have high resolution headshots, it's got to have your bio, it's got to have your book synopsis at a minimum, because that's where the media is going to go to get more information about you and your books. After that, then it's figuring out, who do you actually want to talk to when it comes to media outreach? Are you looking at podcasts? Are you looking at blogs? Are you looking at getting on radio, maybe? Who's out there that you really want to talk to? And doing the research piece around that. Once you have the media kit ready to go and the media list ready to go, then it's time to figure out, what do you want to tell them? What do you want to tell them about yourself and your books that isn't going to be the length of an academic thesis? Because I always say, your pitch, the chief goal of your pitch is designed to entice the media enough to respond to your email and go, hey, I would love to review your book. Or, hey, I'd love to book you in for an interview. So you need to figure out how and what you want to tell them that's going to entice them enough to want to look at your media kit, book you an interview, or schedule a review of your book. So those are kind of the chief building blocks of a successful PR strategy. And I just wanted to address David's point here about setting everything up before doing PR. The point of having a media kit is that to give them an easily accessible package that they can go and download. So if they book you for an interview, let's say, you want to give them easy access to your bio, to your photos, to a book synopsis, so they can promote the interview ahead of time on their social media, through their email, wherever it is that they're doing it. Is it a necessity for you to completely set up your website? No. There are authors that I know that do not have websites, but they have a media kit, so they have a centralized location to send the media when they want more information about themselves as an author and about their books. Having a website is not an absolute necessity, but as you continue to grow and you build on your PR experience, it's a great place to basically host your previous and upcoming events, your previous and upcoming interviews, all of those types of things. If you're writing a blog, it's a great way for them to learn a little bit more about you, that maybe you're not going to put all of that information in your pitch. You're not going to put all of that information in your media kit. So it's not, you don't have to set everything up, all of your email sequences and all of that, to be ready for PR. It's really about going back to what your mindset is, what your goals are, and how you want to position yourself. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think I'm just going to back up a little bit. Kenny's question was, where do I start? And the answer was, set your goals, right? Start with your goals, whether that's selling so many books, or using your books to get paid speaking, or to bring people into your masterminds and workshops, bring them into your business as clients. Start with your goals. And then when you have your goals, you need to know your position. You need to know how you're going to how you're going to approach things. Then you need your products for media, your media kit. David asked, do I need a website? Do I need everything ready first? The answer is no, you do not need everything ready first to have. When you say products for media, it isn't everything. It's at least one place, a central place, a media kit for people to go to. And then figure out who you want to talk to, or who, like, what's the audience want to reach and who has that audience. I just wanted to summarize that for everyone before we move on. And I had Barbara said, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, I think this is what you're saying. I just don't have the time and energy to do it all myself. I've got the education on public relations, but not the bandwidth. Lilian, what do you say to that?
I think, again, it comes down to, if you have the education, it also comes down to what your goals are and whether or not what you feel like you don't have time for. Because PR, just like any other facet of marketing, can become a full-time job if you let it, right? So it really comes down to incrementally, what is it that you want to build your way up to? Is it podcasts? Is it doing workshops? Is it presenting at festivals? You can do all of these things incrementally. What I usually recommend for a lot of authors who maybe don't have a ton of PR experience is to really look at what type of strategy they want to build. Is it more of an earned media strategy? So that is your podcast interviews, your reviews, your events, that sort of thing. Do you want to do more thought leadership, which is more of, hey, I want to position myself as an industry expert. I'd like to go for conference panel opportunities or presenting my own workshops. Do you want to build more of a business development strategy where it's, I want to do more author signings, I want to build more of a relationship with different distributors in the form of bookstores, book boxes, whatever it is. So it really kind of comes down to what exactly your goals are, where you feel like you don't have time. And then that's where someone like me, with because campaign services is certainly something I offer clients as well, I would come in with a discovery call with you and just determine where is it that you feel like you don't have time, and how can we work together to perhaps launch a campaign that will help you meet your needs and reach your goals. So I wanted to address Marilyn's points. Marilyn, you are absolutely correct. As a book reviewer, it is absolutely crucial when it comes to media contact research to really do your research on who you're targeting, right? The last thing you want to do is spend hours upon hours doing research into book reviewers and then have all of those guys be people that don't review nonfiction, right? So it's really, really key to select your reviewers carefully, and when you are doing follow-ups, don't nag them, don't bomb them, give them time to respond. Typically what I advise clients on is, if you are launching a campaign and you are pitching reviewers or interviewers, podcasts, whoever it is that you're reaching out to, don't follow up with them more than once a week, because you want to give them that time to respond. You want to give them that time to look through what it is that you've sent them. Oftentimes what will happen is I will pitch an interviewer twice and they'll be like, oh, really appreciate this, I didn't see it the first time it was sent. That happens a lot. It's very, very rare that you'll get a response the first time you send out an email. So just keeping that part in mind. Paula, this is a very interesting question.
Lilian, sorry. I'm just gonna, for the people on the replay, I just want to make clear that the question you were answering was, Marilyn said, as a book reviewer, I've become aware of how important it is to make sure your kit is very focused on your reader. So just so people on the replay, we were talking about choosing the right people to pitch and making sure your media kit is really focused on your audience, so the right podcasts and the right media pick you up rather than talking to people who really don't care and wasting your time in there. Sorry about that. And if you could read Paula's before answering, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Paula, this is a great question that you're asking here about being a podcast guest. You get asked a lot about your list size, and that's a challenge for you. So when they say your list size, I would think they're referring to your email subscribers, correct? Okay. All right. I would honestly look at this type of requirement for a podcast, and really for me, I would wonder whether or not this is absolutely the right audience that I want to be targeting. And the reason why I would think that is because there are thousands of podcasts out there that focus on business, entrepreneurship, authors, all of that kind of thing. And some of them are very, very selective about who they will accept as a guest because they want to provide the most value to their audiences. And sometimes what they believe that value is tied to is things like your email subscriber list, is things like how much money you're making as an entrepreneur on a monthly basis. For myself, these are not podcasts that I would target because I think that it's their right to determine for themselves who they believe will bring the most value to their audiences. For myself as a publicist and a PR coach, and certainly for someone who has been on quite a few podcasts for myself, I look at where I can add the most value based on my experiences, based on my knowledge, and based on my expertise. In your case, as an author, whatever topic that you're focusing on, whatever skill sets that you want to focus on when it comes to what people have to learn from you, I think is really key. So when you're looking at pitching podcasts, go beyond just looking at what topics they cover or what areas or industries that they cover, and really look at, do they have these kinds of prerequisites for their guests? Do they make those prerequisites, clear from the very beginning? And also look at, is their audience size really reflective of the people that you want to talk to? And I know that for the most part, it's really kind of tough for the general public to see the number of downloads a podcast has. That's not public knowledge most of the time, but what you can see is look at what their social media presence is like. Who are they talking to? Who are some of their other guests? How are their audiences interacting with their social media content? Is this really who you want to target? Is this really the audience, the listenership you want to get your book in front of?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to that and what Marilyn was saying. And Lilian, I'd love to hear feedback if you have it. I'm going to look at it so I produce an interview show. So I'm going to look at it from that perspective. I have people sending me requests to be a guest on my show who are fiction authors. I'm sure they're wonderful people. My audience is not looking to hear from them. Therefore, it is a waste of their time and my time. I say no to them. It's not a reflection of who they are as an author, or what they have to give. It's not my audience. When somebody, I have a guest forum, I ask, like, what are you giving my audience? It's one of the questions I have, like, what are you providing for my audience? That's the best question. If people can answer that really well, sometimes what they say is, well, I want to tell them about my book because my book's awesome. They usually get passed over because they're not thinking about my audience. They're thinking, I can tell, as much as they're telling, I need to tell your audience about my book, right? Let's not talk about you anymore. Let's talk about how much you like me, right? So that's the other thing I look at is, what are you providing my audience? Paula, I do not look at their email list size If you don't have a huge social media following, that's fine. If you're a professional who can give value to my audience, then I will consider you as a guest. So I suspect that people who are looking for guests who have big podcasts, who big email lists, are looking at growth over service. And that's just not my perspective. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not how I build my business. It's not how I build my show or my life. Lilian, I'm happy to hear your comments on that.
I absolutely agree with you, Melody, in that it's also really about when you're looking at media outlets, whatever it is that you're pitching on whatever platform, it's not just about, it goes both ways, right? It's not just about you doing your homework on them and positioning yourself the right way. It's also about you doing your homework on them to see whether or not they align with your values and your desire to share your story, to educate, to captivate, and to give audiences an opportunity to really learn from you, to have in-depth discussions about topics that are meaningful to you and that are related to why you came on here to talk about your book, right? So it's really about asking yourself, if I get confronted with these podcasts, or even approached by a podcast that has a prerequisite of, well, how much money are you making on a monthly basis? How big is your email list size? In a case like that, what they're actually looking for, like Melody said, is they're looking for, how many people can this guest sell my podcast to? Right? That's what they're looking for. And for me, I believe that a truly positive reciprocal media relationship is really more about building that relationship on how you can help each other cross promote and get out there organically. It's not about paying to be featured on these types of podcasts. It's not about paying to have your name up there in lights because it's high profile or whatever it is. It's about really discovering who's out there that has an audience that would align with me, my story, my values, and what it is that I'm trying to share here through my books, right? And at the same time, the media outlet is looking at you and going, you know what, this is a great story. This person has great experiences. I think my audience can really benefit from that. What you're doing when you're pitching is really positioning yourself so that that media outlet will think that about you, reach out to you and want to do an interview or review, or maybe have you do like a live Q&A event, other opportunities for media coverage.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I have one question. So, and I love how you were saying to Barbara about, feeling overwhelmed and not having the bandwidth, pick the one thing, right? That's great. And the one thing I've been doing is being a podcast guest. I've just said, okay, this is where I'm going to put my energy and my public relations right now. And one of the challenges I find is finding that really perfect niche audience. Do you have any tips on finding that really perfect niche audience?
It really comes down to how and where you're doing your research. Research is one of those things that comes up time and time again when it comes to finding media contacts with the authors that I've worked with and authors that I speak to on a daily basis, because they feel like that portion of it probably takes more time than anything else. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that it will only take 5 minutes, right? It's really about getting on. The easiest way to do it is to get on social media and search for nonfiction podcasts. Get on Google, search for nonfiction podcasts, and look at what's everybody talking about. Because there are podcasts out there that will only review self-help books. There are podcasts out there that have nonfiction authors such as yourselves come on and do live readings, and then they talk about the book. The beauty of having thousands upon thousands of these podcasts and other, blogs, review sites, is that so many of them do focus on different niches. You might have a podcast that does memoirs, right? That is a niche. And the easiest way to find them, just to start off with, is to go and search through the hashtags and the keywords on social media. Do it on Google and see what comes up. Because the other thing that I'd like to stress about media contact research is that you don't have to spend time chained to your computer and feel like it's not a success unless I find 500 contacts. No. You can find 5. You can start off with 5 and then continue to build on that. Maybe on a weekly basis, all you have is half an hour to go look things up. But you can find 5 and continue to build incrementally on that. And certainly for myself, I see podcasts related to authors who talk to authors about everything from the writing craft to self-publishing to editing to, again, memoirs, travel books, all sorts of things that would fit all of these different specific niches. And the easiest way for you to start looking for them is to just type those keywords into Instagram, into Twitter, and also on Google.
Thank you. We're really close to time. There's one more question, and maybe you can, you're not gonna be able to answer it fully, but just give us one hint. Tammy's asking, what would you recommend as the first step for creating a following?
Tammy, I'm assuming you're referring to social media here as a following? Okay.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
I would assume so. I have a website, but there has to be a way to even get people to the website. So
sure,
social media.
Absolutely. My biggest tip is to join the writing community on Instagram. You can search on the hashtag, and there are thousands of authors on there who are consistently sharing news about their stories, supporting each other, even giving each other fun challenges like writing prompts. It's a really robust community. They're on both Instagram and Twitter, and you can really actually find reviewers that way, find supporters that will help share your news, and find people that will be your cheerleaders, essentially, people that will beta read for you, people that will read art copies, people that will be your first people to review your books. That, to me, is the best way to start building that community and really kind of dig into, because the more other people in the writers community, the more connections you can build to, oh, this person has an author's podcast, this person has one on the writing craft, and that's kind of how you can start even to build your own list of media contacts.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Lilian Sue. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. Of course, Author Nation, Lilian Sue was just talking about joining a community. Author Nation is a community of authors, and I know many of you are there. And if you're not there, I'm just going to put in, bye, Marilyn. I'm just going to put in the link, learn more about Author Nation. So join Author Nation. We have a couple of upcoming events. We have a writing and community session, and we have a monthly member mingle. Join us there, become part of a network. And Tammy, we can talk more about building a following, on another event. Are there any other topics, educational topics that people would like?